All right. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Ziying. I'm a PhD student at Penn State. Today, I'm going to present a paper from Euro 6 2023, Omni-Paxos breaking the barriers of partial connectivity. So this paper focuses on the partial connectivity issue. In 2020, Cloudflare experienced a partial network partition, which caused their etcd cluster to be live locked, and the whole cluster become unavailable. So the author of this paper questioned that whether the existing replicated state machines are resilient to the partial network partition issue, and they found out they are not. So they also point out that most RSM implementations have monolithic designs, and thus makes the optimization more complicated. So they come up with a completely resilient system called Omni-Paxos, and they decouple the modules in system designs and propose sequence paxos and the quorum connected leader election, which will be covered later. And most importantly, the Omni-Paxos can guarantee the progress as long as there is at least one quorum connected server in the system. Okay, so let's look at what is partial network connectivity. It refers to two servers are unreachable from each other, but are connected by a third server. And this paper focuses on three types of scenarios that may fail existing RSM protocols. The first one is quorum loss scenario. Given an initial cluster of 5 nodes, and C is the stable leader. And when the quorum loss scenario arises, B, C, D lost connections to each other, and A is the only one maintains connection to B, C, E, and D. So peer B, D, E will time out and start the leader election. Because they only have connection to A, so they can only receive the vote from itself, and also maybe one vote from A at most. So 2 votes is less than the majority, so B, D, and E cannot become the leader. However, A has the connection to C, so A can still receive the heartbeats from the leader C, so A will never start the leader election. So in this case, the whole system, there's no leader in this system, and the progress will pause. And basically, the paper find out the Multi-Paxos, Reft, ViewStem, Replication, and Zookeeper, they cannot survive under this scenario. And only the Reft with the pre-vote and check quorum in the latest modification can deal with it. And the second one is the outdated lock scenario. It's similar to the last one, but here the A and C, A also lost connection to C, so A should be able to start the leader election. But here we add more the log entries information on each peer. So for example, in A, it has 2 entries in its log with the ballot number of 1, and D has 3 entries with the latest ballot number of 2. So A cannot become the leader when we run Reft or ViewStem replications, because these protocols have the log requirement for the leader elections. So basically, it requires the leader has the latest log among all the peers. So in this case, there's also no leader, and everything will be paused. And in this case, Multi-Paxos would be the only workable protocol, because Multi-Paxos doesn't require any log information for the leader election. And the last one is the chain scenario. So we have 3 nodes, and B is the stable leader at the beginning. And when the partial partition happens, B and C lost connection, and C will time out and start the leader election after that. So C will become the next leader. And A will get the heartbeats from C, and A will become the follower of C. However, B will still send request to A and will get rejected from A. Then B will learn the new leader of C. So B will become the follower of C. But however, B will not get any information or any request from C. So B will time out again and start the leader election, and B will become the leader. And C eventually will become the follower of B. Then C will time out and start another leader election. So there will be like the leader churning under the chain scenario. And this basically what Cloudflare experienced during that outage. So in this case, all the existing protocols are not resilient to this scenario. So let's look at what Omni-Paxos proposes. First, we will briefly introduce its system design. As we mentioned earlier, Omni-Paxos separate the RSM into two independent modules. It has one service layer and the other one is the log replication layer. The log replication layer contains the ballot leader election module, which is responsible for the electing the leader. The other independent module is sequence Paxos. Is responsible for actual log replication and also its consistency. The service layer contains a replicated log and is also responsible for configuration transition as shown in this fig from 4 peers to 3 peers and so on. Well, the paper explains sequence Paxos first, but normally when I read a consensus protocol, I usually start with the leader election. So I decided to talk about the ballot leader election part first. In this paper, it presents a concept called quorum connected servers. It means that a server which is working correctly maintains connection to at least majority servers, and the majority of servers includes itself. So, and it also enforces a rule that only a quorum connected server will start leader election. So only the QC servers will be the leader eventually. And just like this fig, all the peers will send out the heartbeat request to all other peers periodically, no matter it's a follower or a leader. They will keep sending out the heartbeat request. And with this heartbeat, whenever a peer receives a heartbeat from others, it will respond its own ballot number and its status of current connected to notify the request that whether the current peer is quorum connected or not. So with the heartbeat information, the peer are aware of whether itself is quorum connected and which of its peers are alive and quorum connected. So from my perspective, basically the heartbeat piggybacks the quorum connected information and also the leader election. So just like this fig, the example here, under an unstable network circumstance, some peers may receive the quorum responses like A, B, C here. A and C receive 4 responses from all other peers, and B receives 3, but still meet the quorum majority requirement. Well, D and E didn't get enough responses from other peers. So D and E here, they are aware that they are not the quorum connected peer in the system. So when a round of heartbeat completes on a peer, it will append its response to its heartbeat request, because the majority in the quorum connected here counts itself. So that's why it append its own responses to its own request. Then it will count the number of responses. If the responses is less than the majority requirement, then it will set the flag, the quorum connected flag to false, so that is no longer a quorum connected peer in the system. If otherwise, it will call the function the check leader. Well, the check leader is a little bit tricky here. It will find the maximum number, the ballot number from all the current connected servers. For example, A received the responses from B, C, D, E. It only count the maximum ballot number of B and C because only peer B and peer C are current connected. So once it finds the maximum number, it will compare with its own leader ballot number. The leader ballot number is it keeps track of the current leader. So the ballot number is the leader ballot refers to the current ballot number of the current leader. So if maximum ballot number of this heartbeat responses equals to the leader ballot, it means that okay, the leader is still stable. The leader could be itself or it could be other peers. It doesn't matter. It just means that the leader remains the same. If the ballot maximum ballot is less than the leader ballot number, it means that okay, there may be some partition happens and the leader give up the leadership. So the current peer, because is current connected, so it will stop the leader election. If the maximum number is greater than the leader ballot number, it will simply update its own leadership status. Note that the current peer won't update its own ballot. It only updates the status of the leader ballot in for its own state. So the whole procedure above makes sure that the leader will always be the current connected servers and also avoids the situation of no leader under the partition status. So are there any questions about this part? It's a little bit tricky and twisted in the paper, so okay. Then we move to the log replication part, the sequence Paxos. The sequence Paxos is pretty similar to Multi-Paxos, so I will skip some details here. As we mentioned earlier, the ballot leader election handles all the complete leader election part. So actually the prepare phase in the Omni-Paxos, it doesn't involve anything related to the election. Instead, during this phase, the leader will just recover the missing entries in its own log if it lags behind other followers when it becomes the leader. As for the accept phase, it basically works the same as Multi-Paxos. So basically, Omni-Paxos separate the leader election and log recovery into two separate phases in its own protocol. As for failure recovery, sequence Paxos will read the log and the promised round number, accepted round number, and decided index from the disk. Then it will broadcast a message to all the peers. When the current leader receives a message from the peer that just restarted, it will send back with a response so that this peer will learn about who is the leader and what the leader ballot number is, and that's basically how it works for the failure recovery. So okay, let's look at how Omni-Paxos handles under the three partial network partition scenarios. So for the first one, the quorum-less scenario, B, C, D, E, they are not. All of them are not the quorum connected, and A is the only one quorum connected. So A will be the leader eventually because B, C, D, E cannot start the leader election, and the old leader C will give up the leadership. And I also know that in the notion here, the 1 and 0 represent the round number of the heartbeats. So basically, the 0 means the first round of heartbeats, and the 1 means the second round of the heartbeats. It doesn't relate it to the ballot number. So for the second scenario, it's basically the same. A will be the leader because Omni-Paxos doesn't have any requirement about the log entries for the leader election. So it can just omit the things that A doesn't have any latest log entries in its own log. So A can be the leader. The interesting part would be the chain scenario. So at the first, B is the leader, and when the partition happens, C becomes the new leader, and C sends the heartbeat to A. And well, in this case, A becomes the follower of C. But if you still remember, A won't update its own ballot number. It just updates the leader ballot number. So it knows that the leader is C and the ballot number of C, but it won't update its own number. So when B talks to A, all the requests will get rejected because B has lower ballot number. But because A doesn't update its own ballot number, B won't learn about the new leader, which is C. So B won't time out or anything. B just does nothing in this case. So that's how Omni-Paxos avoid the leader training in this case. So C is the leader, B doesn't do anything, and A is the follower of C. So that's how Omni-Paxos fits the chain scenario. So let's look at its evaluation result quickly. So as what I mentioned earlier, view-stem replication and multi-paxos cannot handle the quorum loss scenario. So it has a deadlock. So the downtime will be really large. And the Omni-Paxos works similar to Reft, and the Reft with the pre-vote and check quorum, which is the latest modification in etcd. And for the second scenario, because Reft and view-stem replication will have a deadlock, so Omni-Paxos has the similar downtime as Multi-Paxos. And for the chain scenario, it measures the throughput under the leader training. And Omni-Paxos is one of the best among these 5 implementations. However, after reading the paper, we raised a question about whether Multi-Paxos can survive under the quorum loss scenario. Although the paper argues that it cannot, we believe Multi-Paxos can actually work fine under this case. So when a quorum loss scenario happens, like we mentioned earlier, so all the servers except for server A lost connection to the leader C, so they will increment its ballot number from 3 to 4, for example, and then sends out prepare phase 1 request to A, and A will promise to either peer B, D, or E, and in the same time, the A will increment its own term number from 3 to 4 because it learns about the higher ballot number from other peers. So in this case, A will also reject the heartbeat from C. Obviously, peer B, D, and E cannot be the leader because it only gets the vote from itself and maybe just 1 vote from A, less than 3 votes here. So they won't be the leader, and so they won't send out the heartbeat request to all other followers. So A will time out again and increment its ballot number from 4 to 5. Then it will send out the prepare request to B, C, D, and E. So eventually A will be the leader. So basically we don't do any modification, and it just shows that Multi-Paxos can still work fine under the quorum loss scenario. And we also repeat the experiment, use the same evaluation settings as the one shown in Omni-Paxos. And it actually shows that the Multi-Paxos shows even a little bit better downtime, lower downtime than Omni-Paxos. And well, actually that's good because slightly better performance, no more modification, and actually Omni-Paxos doesn't require all the peers to gossip heartbeats about the quorum connected information between each other. So yeah, that's what we find from the Omni-Paxos paper. And yeah, that's pretty much about this paper. Are there any questions?